All right. So this is legislative video number 2. We're talking about committees in the legislative process. All right. You can start a bill in either the House or the Senate, and we'll go over. We'll have like a huge diagram to go over all this stuff. So it'll be easier to understand once we do the diagram. But just bear with me on some of this stuff. Right. The one of the main rules here is that anything dealing with the budget or so spending or revenue, all right, so budget or taxes, any of those bills have to start in the House. If it's about immigration or it's about rights or whatever, then that can start in either the House or the Senate. But budget and tax stuff has to start in the House. Okay. Once again, there are more rules for debate in the House than there are in the Senate. So the Rules Committee is really important in the House because the Rules Committee sets the rules for debate. Okay. And so once again, whoever is the majority has the majority in every committee, which means you get to make up the rules. Okay. So if you are in the majority, that means you control every committee, including the Rules Committee, which means you get to set the rules for how debate will happen on particular bills. Okay, that's huge. All right. Because of all these rules, there is less debate in the House than there is in the Senate. Okay, and we'll talk about that sort of stuff. All right. But you need to know that the House Rules Committee way more important than the Senate Rules Committee because there's not a lot of debate limitations in the Senate. Once the bill is introduced to the committee of the whole in the House, which means it's the floor of the House. All right, the committee of the whole is everybody. Once the bill, once the bill is introduced on the floor of the House, it then goes to committee. Okay, and like we talked about in the last video, committees are super important because that's where the bulk of the work is done on legislation. When a bill is in committee, okay, that bill can be kept in there. Meaning, if I am a congressman, I might not want this bill out for a vote. Okay, and if it's in my committee, I can pigeonhole a bill, which means I can keep a bill from coming out for a vote. I literally am, it's in committee and you're not going to work, you're preventing a bill from coming out of committee. You're preventing a vote because it's got to get out of the subcommittee and then get out of the committee before it even goes back to the floor. Okay. Well, if I am another member of the House that's not in that committee, I could file a discharge petition, which is forcing, and so the discharge petition is just a majority vote in the House saying, hey, that bill's got to come out. We've got to vote on that bill. Okay, so pigeonholes happen in committees. Pigeonholes can happen in the House. Pigeonholes can happen in the Senate. Discharge petitions can happen in the House. Discharge petitions can happen in the Senate. Okay, after a bill comes out of committee, it would then be voted on by the whole floor of the House. Okay, excuse me. If it gets voted on out of the House, we're heading to the Senate. Okay, now the Senate is different because the Senate has these things called filibusters and holds. Okay, and a filibuster, it used to be that you had to do a talking filibuster. So a filibuster is controlling the floor so that no one else has control. Okay, because when a senator has control of the floor, nothing else can happen. All right. So a filibuster is very much like a child who doesn't like what's happening in a game, taking the ball and going in the corner and holding the ball, saying nobody can play. Because all right, I mean it's pretty that's pretty much what a filibuster is. All right, we've all had that where either ourselves or our brothers or sisters have gotten so pissed that they just like take the ball and they go to the corner. No one's playing it. All right. Well, that's a filibuster. All right. You're just preventing anything from happening. So I think we think of like, of Hollywood with a talking filibuster, how it's glorious or whatever. All right. Those really aren't done anymore. All right. Because we have these things called procedural holds. So the filibuster, it's not in the Constitution. It's a Senate rule from the 1900s. Okay. It was created in the 1900s. All right. And so another Senate rule said, all right, fine. How about we do this? Instead of you talking and slowing everything up, how about we have a procedural hold where you as an individual can say, I want to put a hold on this bill. So that prevents a vote from coming up on this bill. But instead of you talking for an extended period of time, it's we just move on to something else. So a hold is a procedural motion that has the same effect as a filibuster that prevents a vote on a bill. It's a lazy filibuster. It's like I'm too lazy to talk. Okay, so I am just going to do a procedural hold. Okay. The way in which you stop a filibuster or a hold is through a cloture motion. So a cloture motion is a vote by the Senate to limit debate on a bill and force a vote on a bill. Okay? Rules on cloture motions have changed throughout the course of Senate history. Okay? Right now, in order to end a filibuster on a piece of legislation, you need 60 votes. That's 3/5 of the Senate. If you want to stop a hold or a filibuster on a presidential nominee, whether it be a justice, a nominee to a bureaucratic agency, to high-ranking military, whatever, you only now need 51 votes. Legislation needs 60 for any nominees. You only need 51. Okay. Why was cloture changed? Well, the Democrats were sick and tired of the Republicans preventing votes on Obama judicial appointees. And so finally, in 2016, the Democrats changed the rules of the Senate, allowing just 51 votes to stop a cloture. Okay. This has allowed the Republicans to ram through a lot of justices during their time when they have the majority. All right. Rules in the Senate. Okay. Restrictive, open, and closed rules. All right. So when a bill is put on the floor, so same kind of process, goes to the floor, then goes to committee. If it gets out of committee, or so it goes to committee. That committee puts it in a subcommittee to like take a look at it. If it gets out of subcommittee, it goes back to the committee. And then if it gets out of committee, it goes back to the floor. When it's on the floor, okay, there are rules. Some bills are open rules, meaning you can put on any type of amendment to it at all. All right, you can add a rider or an amendment, okay? So you're tacking on something to a bill. All right. It could also be a closed rule, meaning the bill is as it is. You can't add anything to it. All right. This is a closed bill. All right. We're not adding anything to it. The bill is as it is. You also could have a restrictive rule, meaning we're only going to allow certain amendments to it. Okay. In the Senate, you have the it's a principle of germane. All right, so amendments have to be germane to the bill, meaning that the amendment that you're adding to the bill has to pertain to the subject of the bill. All right, so if I'm going to add, if it's a healthcare bill, any amendment I add can only appeal to only be a healthcare. I can't add something dealing with gun rights, or I can't add something dealing with tax legislation if it has nothing to do with healthcare. Okay, so that's germane. One way in which the Senate tries to work around a filibuster or speed things up is unanimous consent. And unanimous consent is just like you would only use unanimous consent if no one is going to dispute what you're saying. So unanimous consent is listen, we're going to put this up for a vote. All right. Is there anyone that doesn't want this to come up for a vote? Or does anyone disagree with what is said in this? All right. That would be unanimous consent. Normally, you do unanimous consent for like the reading of minutes or something like that. It's anytime. So if one senator says, "Yeah, I disagree with what you just said there," then you can't vote on it. All right, you would have to wait for it to come up for a regular vote. It cannot. So anything that's going to be controversial is not going to be able to be used with unanimous consent. All right. Oops. Pork barrel legislation. So when we get these open bills, all right, we're going to tack as much stuff to that bill as possible. So any type of appropriations bill, you're going to have like pork barrel legislation. So you're adding fat to the bill. So that's how you start off with like a $1 billion budget and then it balloons to $3 billion because all of these senators have added amendments to the bill asking for money or requiring money to be spent for pet projects that only benefit the constituents of the congressman who proposed it. So pork barrel legislation, amendments added to a bill that really only benefit the constituents of the congressman who proposed it. All right. Um, why do we have pork barrel legislation? Well, if I'm a congressman, I want to say, hey, listen, I added this to the bill. I got money for our district. The money from this bill went to jobs in this community. All right. Log rolling is when it's I'll scratch your back, you scratch mine. Congressman says, all right, fine. You vote for it. You vote for my bill, and I'll vote for your bill. Okay, so that's log rolling. Congressman says, hey, if you vote for my bill, I'll vote for your bill. Okay. All right. That is committees and the legislative process.